Hello and welcome to the ANRCB projects module on introductory concepts in nutrition. In our first video, we will introduce nutrition and discuss its determinants. We hope that by the end of this video, participants will be able to identify the major determinants of nutrition and be able to discuss nutrition within the context of the developmental agenda globally and in Lao PDR. First, what is nutrition? Nutrition is fundamental to all aspects of life and health, starting before birth and continuing throughout the life course. Many people think of nutrition as concerning foods and nutrients that we eat. This is true. However, the scope of nutrition is far broader. Nutrition is a scientific discipline, and those who work in the field of nutrition may work in medicine, at a health facility or clinical setting, in a laboratory doing assays or experiments, or in the community as a community health worker or public health practitioner. They may work on policies at the local, national, or international levels. The nutritional status of a person or a population depends on more than what they eat. In nutrition, we investigate what drives people's food choices and what are the limitations and barriers that they encounter. For example, are they food secure? Nutrition is also affected by the care that people receive and the resources available to them, whether you're talking about infants and children, women of reproductive age, the elderly, or people at other life stages. It also depends on their health, whether they have any infections or chronic diseases, and their access to healthcare. Another key aspect is the environment in which people live and work. This includes their safety and security, their access to basic needs such as clean water, and their relationships with their families and communities. So let's consider these factors in some more detail. We can consider factors that influence nutrition from the individual all the way to larger societal levels. For example, in addition to our personal food preferences and choices, we have other behaviors and lifestyle, such as our physical activity, that influence our nutritional status. Our behaviors are influenced by what we know, for example, our knowledge of nutritious foods, what we believe, for example, what we think constitutes healthy eating, and our skills, for example, in preparing food at home. Nutritional needs and eating patterns vary depending on demographic background. For example, the needs and diets of children are, of course, different from those of adults. People of differing socioeconomic status have different barriers and challenges in accessing foods. Our preferences and which foods we like to eat can vary depending on our ethnic, cultural, or religious backgrounds. Mental health can also affect our patterns of eating, as can the support we get from our families and our communities. Finally, genetics can also play a role in our nutritional needs and metabolism. When we consider the larger environment that people live in, we're not only referring to weather and climate. We're also talking about the food environment, which includes all the sources of food around us, such as farms, street vendors, shops, and markets, the price of those foods, and related factors. We also consider the built environment, which includes the physical infrastructure around us, such as buildings, streets, and more. Many institutions play a role in our lives. For example, beyond our homes, there are also our places of work and schools. Industries, particularly food, beverage, and entertainment industries, can also play a significant role in our food choices. There are many important societal factors that ultimately determine our nutrition. What and how we eat is influenced by culture. For example, there are certain foods that we typically eat for breakfast and other foods that we traditionally eat for holidays. Culture influences those food choices. Social norms are standards of behavior and common practices that we have as a society. For example, in many cultures, women do much of the family's cooking and women have most of the responsibility to feed the youngest children. These are examples of gender norms. Finally, at the broadest level, our nutrition can be influenced by the laws, services, and systems available to us. This includes a country's regulations and policies for food and agriculture, healthcare systems, laws that regulate advertising in the media, and so on. This is a complicated system, And I'm sure you can think of additional factors that influence nutrition. We must also recognize that many of these factors at these different levels interact. For example, I may have good knowledge and a desire to eat healthy foods, but my food environment, perhaps those foods are not available or they're too expensive. Or perhaps it's difficult for me to reach a market with healthy foods because it's too far away, the road is not good, or I don't have transportation. Or perhaps the advertising I see encourages me to eat different foods instead. The Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, reflect the Global Development Agenda. There are 17 goals to be achieved by the year 2030, and they were adopted by the member states of the United Nations in 2015. Each goal has multiple targets and covers areas such as poverty, health, food, education, climate change, and global partnership. Nutrition now, as we've discussed, is arguably central to all of the SDGs. And here I'm going to give a few examples. SDG 2, for example, aims to end hunger, and adequate healthy food is necessary for good nutrition. Sustainable Development Goal number 3 aims to improve health and well-being, and we know that poor nutrition increases the risk of illness and even death. Similarly, good nutrition helps children grow, develop, and learn, which is the aim of SDG 4. Gender equality is the topic of SDG 5, which is key for achieving good nutrition, especially for girls and women. And this is important for both their well-being and that of their future children. Lack of access to clean water, sanitation, which is addressed by Sustainable Development Goal number 6, can lead to infection, which can negatively impact nutritional status. We can continue like this for all the other Sustainable Development Goals, and we will discuss these relationships throughout this module. So what is the state of nutrition in Laos? We can set goals and monitor our progress towards them by using indicators. And here we see 4 key nutritional indicators. The first regards low birth weight in infants. We see that 15% of children born in Laos in 2012 had low birth weight, and this number improved to 6.5 in 2017, thereby achieving targets that had been set for 2020 and 2025. The next 2 indicators concern children under the age of 5 years. We're often interested in this age group because they're very nutritionally vulnerable at this period in life. The second indicator you see here regards stunting, which is simply when a child is too short for their age, and it indicates chronic undernutrition. We can see from the numbers that rapid progress has been achieved in Laos for stunting in young children. However, in 2017, 1 in 3 children were still stunted, showing that there is more work to be done. The third indicator that you see here regards wasting in children under the age of 5. Wasting is when children are too thin. Overall, the rates of wasting are low in Laos, but there are goals to make further progress. Anemia is a challenge for children as well as adult women. The prevalence of anemia in women and girls of reproductive age, which is ages 15 to 49, is relatively high, and goals have been set to reduce this number in the coming years. We can also look at the world's progress towards these and related goals. For each of the goals in this figure, we can see the number of countries that are on course or making some or no progress. When it comes to targets for infant and young child nutrition, such as low birth weight, breastfeeding, stunting, wasting, or overweight, we see that some, but not many, of the countries are on course. While some countries are making progress, no country is on course for reducing the prevalence of anemia among women of reproductive age. Meanwhile, obesity and diet-related non-communicable diseases such as diabetes are emerging problems throughout the world, and few countries are making progress. Here we see the progress of Laos towards its nutrition targets. Laos is on course to meet the target for child stunting. The country has also made progress in low birth weight and exclusive breastfeeding. However, goals remain for anemia among women, overweight and obesity in children and adults, and diet-related non-communicable diseases. When we discuss nutrition, we're often concerned with the nutritional status of infants and young children. We're interested in these youngest children because they can be quite vulnerable, and also because poor nutrition and development early in life can have lifelong consequences. Poor nutrition in early life can lead to morbidity and mortality. It affects cognitive, motor, and socio-emotional development. It also affects children's ability to learn, their performance in school, and adults' capacity to work and be productive. It can further increase the risk of metabolic diseases in adulthood. For girls who grow up to become mothers, poor nutrition can affect the well-being of their future children, leading to intergenerational effects. So what leads to optimal fetal and child nutrition and development? First, we have immediate factors, which are shown in blue. These include a child's diet and how a child is fed, the care that a child receives from their family and community, and their health, especially the burden of infectious disease. Several factors underlie these immediate determinants of child nutrition. For example, a child's diet is influenced by their household's food security, which can include whether food is available and a family has the economic means to access that food. The resources that are available to a family will affect the sort of caregiving that is provided to a child, and child health can be affected by the environment in which a child lives. For example, whether a family has access to clean water so that the child does not become ill, or whether they have access to health services. Similarly, there are basic factors that affect a child's nutrition. This includes resources within the community, leadership, and governance. Interventions and programs that address immediate factors are often referred to as nutrition specific. These include interventions such as nutrient supplementation of mothers during pregnancy, promotion of breastfeeding, treatment of acute malnutrition, and intervention during emergencies. Programs and approaches that address underlying factors are often called nutrition sensitive. These programs are often in sectors other than health, for example, agriculture, education, women's protection, and water and sanitation. Similarly, there are approaches that build on an environment that enables good nutrition. These can include leadership programs, capacity building, advocacy legislation, and so on. The conceptual framework of the National Plan of Action on Nutrition in Laos elaborates on the conceptual framework we just discussed. This conceptual framework here focuses on key consequences, including child and maternal mortality, poor development in children, decreased social and economic growth, and intergenerational transmission of malnutrition. It focuses on malnutrition in children, adolescents, and mothers, and identifies immediate, underlying, and basic causes of poor nutrition in the Lao context. The strategic framework for the National Plan of Action on Nutrition has three components, which have multiple strategic objectives. The first component addresses direct causes of malnutrition and therefore has objectives to improve nutrient intakes and to improve water, sanitation, and hygiene, which is often referred to by the acronym WASH. The second component addresses indirect causes of malnutrition, so it addresses access to nutritious foods, knowledge and behaviors around nutritious diets, health, and care. The third component addresses basic causes and therefore has several strategic objectives that address issues such as institutional capacity, human resources, financial management, governance, service delivery, and others. As I mentioned earlier, multi-sectoral approaches are critical for improving nutrition. Specifically, we need approaches to achieve global nutrition targets, to scale up evidence-based nutrition-specific interventions, and to strengthen nutrition-sensitive interventions. By doing this, a multi-sectoral approach will address both the direct and underlying causes of malnutrition. To be successful, it's important to have coordination, collaboration, and integration among parties and sectors. Coordination involves exchanging information and working together on activities to achieve a common purpose. Collaboration involves parties working together, sharing resources, and enhancing each other's capacity towards that common purpose. Integration further involves joint planning and implementation from the outset. All right, to summarize, in this introduction to Module 1, we hope that you take away these key messages. First, nutrition is influenced by many factors operating at different levels, from the individual up to the society and policy levels. Nutrition is central to the developmental agenda, both for the world and for Lao PDR. Identifying key nutrition indicators allows us to set goals and monitor progress towards our goals. Undernutrition remains a challenge throughout the world. However, there are now emerging challenges that come from overweight, obesity, and diet-related non-communicable diseases. Laos has specific nutrition targets for adults and children, and to achieve these targets, it's important to take multi-sectoral approaches that address the immediate, underlying, and basic causes of malnutrition. All right, thank you very much for your attention. This concludes the first topic of Module 1.